We're at the last module for our training series regarding telehealth in MyChart specifically. But once again, I'm just going to go through my usual spiel about who we are and what this program is all about. I am a part of Search and Care, and it's a nonprofit. We're located on East 94th Street between 2nd and 3rd Avenue, where we help older adults live independently in their local communities through our case management, our socialization and educational groups, and our programs called Silver Circles, which I am the program coordinator for. Our main goal is to help folks understand their devices so that you're not relying on friends or family to utilize the device for you, but you're able to then understand the device and then teach others how to use the device. We do that through one-on-one coaching and group workshops. We know that there may be some questions that folks are a little hesitant to ask, things of that nature. That's why we really emphasize our one-on-one coaching. That's entirely free, and you can have as many sessions as needed because we understand that learning technology is like learning a new language. We understand that baby steps are needed here. Okay? So if you have any devices, things of that nature that you could use some help with, and you could use a home visit, we do provide those as well, along with an office visit, or we can meet you at a local library, community center, whatever it is, we can make that work. Before we begin, I just want to remind folks, all the images that we're going to be using are for Metropolitan Hospital, but this also should apply for NYU Langone, Mount Sinai, any other place that has any MyChart support. A couple of features that we're going to be discussing today that are a part of the health and hospitals portion of MyChart. So there's a lot of screenshots regarding here, but for other facilities, there should be similar features available to you. So let's begin. Once again, this is the home page. So as we remember from the second module, these certain icons that we should always remember, the visits, the messaging, the test results, the medications, but we're also going to be looking into the side menu because in that module, we mentioned that there's many more features that we weren't going to go over that module because we're going to mention it here. As a reminder, we're going to be accessing the side menu, and this is really the only way to access this feature. We're going to utilize those 3 horizontal lines. I like to call it the hamburger because food helps me remember things. So the 2 buns on the top, well, 1 bun on the top, 1 on the bottom, and a patty right in the middle. Okay, so try to think of it that way if you like. But if we click on that icon, we will now get the MyChart side menu, as we like to call it. As you can see on this list, there are a lot of things listed here, but we're going to be discussing 3 main features. That's going to be end-of-life planning, the document center, and checking your medical and family history. We're going to start off with end-of-life planning. Once again, this is something that even I learned about while making these presentations because this is not something that's really advertised so much on MyChart or their marketing materials. And we realized that this is a great way of getting this process started. So let's begin here. This is essentially us going into this side menu, going down to this arrow. You see number 1 on this list here, and we're going to be clicking on end of life planning. Once we click on end of life planning, we're then going to be given this screen. Think of this section as a hub, a place where you can have all your necessary documents, your wishes, things of that nature, all in one place. This is something that's not required, but this is a great feature to utilize. It's acting as a little bit of a journal. It's also acting as a place to keep your important end-of-life documents, your do not resuscitates, your living wills, your power of attorneys, things of that nature. You can have it all here in one space, so it's easy to view. I know there's a lot to look at here, so we're going to start from arrow number 1 on the left side. This section is called For My Loved Ones. This is going to be a place where you can jot down some messages for your loved ones, and you'll see there's some prompts to help create the type of language that you want to provide to your loved ones. So we'll be going over that in a moment. But number 2 is For My Care Team. This is going to be information so that, God forbid, something were to happen to you, you're incapacitated, you can't make decisions for yourself. They could at least look through this section here for your care team, so you'll at least have some idea of what any wishes are, if there's any people that they should be in contact with, things like that. Number 3 are your healthcare agents. These are folks that you can designate 1 or more healthcare agents who can make healthcare decisions for you when you cannot. We'll be going over how to do that. So a friend or a family member, anyone that you would trust to be able to make these decisions for you, if you cannot, you would add them here. So this is once again a place where folks can easily get in touch with these contacts for you. And number 4 are your planning documents. So these are going to be the documents that you can actually upload into MyChart so that you have a safe, secure place where those files are located and that your care team can access at a moment's notice, just in case they need it. We're going to be first starting with number 1. Once again, this is going to be the place for your loved ones. Keep in mind, your care team cannot view this. this, the only people that would be able to view this would be yourself. And let's say you have a team or a group of friends or family that you trust to have access to your MyChart account. They would then be able to see this page as well. Whatever you input into here, they will be able to see for you. So just keep that in mind. If you're uncomfortable with adding any information or typing any information onto this section, feel free to grab a journal, because these are great writing prompts to help jog that memory to say, I should mention that I have this debt, or that there's this envelope of money that someone should know about. So we're going to break this down, but I just wanted to provide that context before we continue. Let's first start here. There's a bunch of blank white spaces because you can write as much or as little as you want, and you can always edit. So it's not final. Let's say you typed in your message, you're like, oh wait, that envelope is actually somewhere else. Let me go back and type. You can totally do that. You can edit away. So do not feel as if whatever you type in this section is final, anything like that. You can always edit. So the first question here are, what hobbies or activities are most important to you? The next is, are there certain people whom you consider important to see or that you enjoy spending time with? What responsibilities do you have that you don't want to be forgotten if you're away? For example, any pets that you have to take care of, any bill payments that you have to make, any tasks. So like maybe if there's any plants that need to be watered, anything like that. This is for yourself to let people know. But once again, if others are able to access your account because you let them, they will be able to see this as well. So let's go into the other portion of this. This is still for your loved ones, but keep in mind, this is now financial information. So we're going to break this down. It says here, what benefits or sources of income do you want your loved ones to be aware of? For example, any veterans benefits, annuities, workers' compensation, things like that. There's certain assets you want your loved ones to be aware of, any investments, safety deposit boxes, storage units. Are there certain debts you would want your loved ones to be aware of? Credit card debt, outstanding loans, things like that. Because if anything happens to you, you don't want someone to unknowingly get a surprise letter in the mail stating that they owe this much money. At least give them that little heads up before anything. If we continue here, these are final wishes. The first portion here is, how would you like to be remembered? What charitable donations, if any, do you want to be made in your name? What do you want to happen to your pets? That's another big one for folks to think about, especially any emergency aspects of who has keys to the apartment. God forbid something were to happen to you, things like that. Are there special things that you want to make sure certain people have? What items? That's like any sentimental things. If someone's going through your apartment and then they notice that, oh, there's this item here. Well, Miss Smith didn't mention anything about that. Let's talk. But if you have any sentimental items that you would want particular family members or friends to have, write that down. What items or documents are important for your loved ones to locate in the event of your death? So once again, any legacy documents, your social security card, birth certificate. Some folks, they make a list of passwords or their account information just in case, anything like that. And you can also state where they're located. But once again, if you feel uncomfortable, this site is entirely secure. But if you do feel uncomfortable, I would suggest taking out a journal, write down these questions, write it down for yourself, just so that you have it on hand, and that if anything, God forbid, were to happen to you, you can let someone know where that journal's at. And then it has all that necessary information as well. So just throwing out an alternative way of utilizing this if needed. So now these sections are for your care team. This is where you can record your wishes and values in terms of how you would like to have your healthcare handled in the event of a serious illness and or death. So once again, you could always update these sections, especially if your care team needs to look at this. Make sure that this is updated, because this is something that they can look at. And so any information here is going to be very important to make sure that you cross your T's and dot your I's. Let's start here. What experiences have you had with serious illness or death, and how has it influenced your own wishes and values? What fears or worries do you have regarding end of life? For example, being a pain, being a burden on others, the cost, not getting the care you need. What do you want to do with the time you have left? And are there important events or milestones that you're looking forward to? A good example of that, if anyone's seen the movie The Bucket List, it's a great opportunity to add those things there just in case. If you were to become less able to care for yourself physically, what plans do you and your loved ones have for providing care? So like any hospice care, anything of that nature, what plans do you and your loved ones have for financially supporting the care you may need? Just another one to keep in mind. That's the gist of that section. It's a very small section because there's just certain things that they just want to know just so that they can look on just in case they need to access it. But for your family or your loved ones, that's more of just journaling certain writing prompts there regarding important information that folks may or may not need. The next section here is your healthcare agents. So this is going to be the section that if anyone you feel as if is able to, or if you have someone on as your healthcare proxy, anyone like that, you can add them to this list here. It says that a healthcare agent is a person that you authorize to make healthcare decisions for you when you cannot. This is someone who will make decisions for your healthcare if you're unable to communicate or speak. So just as an example here, this person is Test Bob, and this person is a friend of the patient. So as we can see here, it says Test Bob, parentheses friend. It's saying here that you can add the person's phone number, their home phone number, their cell phone number, their work number, their email, and their address, if anything. You can remove these folks as well, because sometimes you may have someone in mind to take care of your health, but then things happen where you may have to retract that. So you can either edit their information. So if they move away or if they change their number, you can change that information here. Or if, once again, if you need to remove them, you can do that as well. So now are the planning documents. So keep in mind here, these are documents such as power of attorney, medical orders for life-sustaining treatment forms, such as like the DNR, a healthcare proxy, things like that. For this section here, if you look to the right, this is going to be the planning documents. Let's look at the first document on the top. It mentions the type of a document that it is. It says power of attorney, and it mentions the date that it was added on. This says September 28th, 2017. And if you look to the right of that, there's a little green button or a little green section that says accept it. Whenever we've created the legal documentation regarding healthcare proxies, do not resuscitate, anything like that, and if you want it onto MyChart, when you upload, you have to go on the bottom of this list where it says add document. When you do that, you're going to then upload your document and it's going to be in review before it's accepted. The reason why they do this is because once your document is accepted, you cannot remove it. So you actually have to speak to your facility's medical records office to get that removed. Just keep that in mind that once it's accepted, you cannot remove it, but you do have an option to give your medical office a call to see if they can get that removed for you. Just in case, once again, if that power of attorney is no longer a person that you think can be your power of attorney, give folks a call, let them know. On the bottom of where it says documents on file, it also says here, documents in review. It's the same thing where it mentions the document name, the date it was uploaded. So let's go to the last file here where it says CH205 school form. Right below that, it says the date that it was uploaded. So this was June 8th, 2023. On the right side, in orange, it says in review. It may take a couple of days before it's accepted, but just keep in mind, once it's accepted, you're good to go. And it's now officially on your account. So if, God forbid, something were to happen to you, your care team can see those documents now. They have access to it. From there, they'll be able to contact the healthcare proxy. They can look at that healthcare agent section that we just looked at. They can look at this section over here, look at the information, give that person the call if needed, and they take things from there. This was the end of life planning portion. So that whole hub here, we explained that. So now we're going to be moving on forward to the document center that was also found on the side menu when you click on those three horizontal lines. This is another section or like a little hub where you have access to multiple things here. We're going to break this down. So we're going to start at number one. This is where you can view your visit records. This is where if you want to go to your past appointments, check your records that way, download it, print it out, send it to another doctor or anything like that, you can get that done. That includes any health issues, the medications you're on, allergies, immunizations, things like that. Number two are requested records. So these are any legal documentation that you may need, workers' compensation information, any government reporting, coordination of care, things like that will go into number two for requested records. Number three are your documents. So those are the documents when you go into a doctor clinic for the first time and you have to fill out your allergies, your medications, things like that. Also, any HIPAA liability waivers that you're signing will be listed in my documents. Number four will be who accessed my records. We'll be going into that in a moment, but that only relates to folks that have access to your account. That means folks that you trust that have access to your account. Like we mentioned before in the end of life planning section, where if you have a team of folks, of family and friends that you trust that can have access to your account, you can view who accessed your record in number four. We'll be going over that in a moment. Let's continue here. We're going to start with number one. So viewing your visit records. This goes back to the second module when we were talking about how to view your past and upcoming appointments. But for this section here, this is strictly for past appointments. appointments. And there are a couple of ways that we can view this. So right above the one arrow over here, it says single visit. So it's going to mention single visits that you have done, things like that. So it's saying here in the last couple of months, you've been to an office visit in September, August, July, June. But if you go to the top here where it says date range, let's say you're trying to find medical record or office visits from 2021 to 2022 because you knew you were back and forth between doctors, perfect place to do that, where you can actually input the dates that you're trying to look for those appointments and it'll find those for you. And you can go to at the far right where it says all visits and it'll give you every single visit that you have been to. I've been helping clients out where we were able to view 10 years worth of appointments. So if you're interested, you have access to that, if anything. We're going to be clicking on September 10th, the office visit. And so once we do that, you're then given a couple of other options. When you click on the appointment, it lets you preview the documents. These green buttons right here, it says you can either download your appointment notes or you can send your notes. So if you have like a specialist that you need to send it to, you can do that through the messaging on MyChart, which we discussed back in module 3. Oh, you also have access to selecting specific notes. So just keep in mind for appointments, you usually get only 2 notes. Your after visit summary, which is your basic information like your weight, your height, your blood pressure, things like that before you actually see the doctor for the appointment is usually going to be in the after visit summary. The actual notes from your doctor as you're talking with them, you're with your doctor, they're speaking with you with their eye line, but then they're moving their torso to the side so they can start typing away those notes. That's the office visit notes right on the bottom of this list here. If you need that, you are more than welcome to download, print, send it to another specialist, a doctor, things like that, and you can go from there. So now we're going into the requested records section that we talked about from that little hub. So number 2 on the arrow. Once again, in this section, you can download requested medical records once they are ready to be viewed, because there's some records that they may not able to be accessed yet just due to some limitations, or they have to be approved by a medical staff before you're able to view. So once again, to the left here of this slide, to request medical records, at least for NYC Health and Hospitals, it may be different for another medical facility, so just keep that in mind. There is a number for their office so that you can request medical records. They're available Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. But let's go into the actual section here for requested records. So whenever you get to this section, the top of the list is going to be documents that are not yet ready. What that means is that they're still under review. They need to be accepted by the staff before you can fully have access to it until you're able to download it. If you see here, it says a copy of your health record. So that's something you could always request that. Oh, can I just get a copy of my health record for this appointment or whatever it was? And you should be able to receive that. It just may take a couple of days before you're able to get access to that. You can actually see the date that it was requested. And then once your document is ready for download, it will go to the section right below this arrow over here where it says ready for download. For this example, there's no documents to show that are ready, but it would be in this section where it says ready for download. Also, once your documents are approved and accepted, they do have an expiration date. So you don't have access to it all the time. If you look on the bottom, it actually says here, there's a section that says no longer available. It says here your school health summary, and it says date requested was in August 29th, 2024, and the date that it expires is October 2nd, 2024. So just keep that in mind. It may have a month or 2 before it expires, but it also may change depending on the type of document. I'm not an expert on that aspect. You may have a longer expiration date for certain documentation compared to others. Now we have another section here in the document center that says documents to sign. You're never going to really get any documents to sign through the MyChart app per se, unless your doctor is sending you any information virtually. So just keep this in mind. When you go to your primary care doctor for the first time, or any doctor for the first time, you get the HIPAA acknowledgments, anything regarding your payments, like, oh, you agreed to provide us your credit card information for yada, yada, yada. And if you sign off on that, it will be listed in this section. On the top of the screenshot, it says My Documents, and it says Documents to Sign right below that. But for this example, there's no documents to sign. But below that, it says Other Documents. It shows these acknowledgments, the HIPAA acknowledgement, your consent for treatment, treatment, anything like that. Let's say there's a malpractice possibly, and you're like, where are these documents? I don't remember signing these documents. It's going to be here. So if you ever need that, because we've heard from some of our clients that they would like to see that information, the documents that they signed off on, perfect place for that. So just keep that in mind. That's usually going to be the place where, once again, any documents that you have to sign will be listed here. And that's pretty much it for the most part regarding this section. The last section here regarding the document center, who accessed my records. This section here will only show folks who signed into your account. So this will be family members that have proxy access, but medical providers will not appear on this list. This is an interesting example because we only have one person here that's accessing this account. So it says purple, that's the person's name. But just imagine maybe if your nephew needs to access your MyChart account because he can help you with certain things, this will be listed here. Your nephew's name, little Billy, will be listed on the top here. They would mention the time that Billy accessed the documents. They mention here the action taken. So he logged into your account, and it says the type of data accessed was your record. So most likely went into your medical records just to see any particular item. I'll give you an example. Just the other day, my grandfather went into the ER, and the only reason we knew about this was because my mom just so happened to check his account, and we got a notice that he was in the ER. So if anything, my mother's name would show up on this list mentioning that she logged in and then she accessed his record. So just keep that in mind. So that's pretty much it, just so that you're aware of that you can see who accessed your records, if anything. Because I know there are some folks that are a little hesitant on sharing information with others, so you can always access this and just be on the safe side to check. We're done with the document center, and so now we're going to be going into your medical history and family history. I actually had a participant from a presentation on this module specifically stating on Mount Sinai, they have all of my allergies listed, my family history, all of that. But then when I go to the other hospital, there's nothing there. What's going on? Well, one has MyChart and the other has something called Follow My Health. So they do not communicate with one another. So if you go to Mount Sinai and you're able to provide them all the information, it's going to show up on these lists that we're going to be providing you, but it may not show up on the other end. So you may need to bring this up with your care provider, but this is also a great space to edit anything that you thought may not be on your record. So we'll get into this. So let's first start off here regarding your medical history. So this section is an overview of your medical and family history. At the bottom here, you can actually add any personal notes. So if you want to add any additional details, you can. Keep in mind, this is only going to be for yourself or anyone that you have allowed access to so that they can get a little bit more information on this. This is a very basic example, but for this person, this patient, they have seasonal allergies and anxiety. So seasonal allergies, maybe this is something that if you want to add something for yourself, oh, it's usually from spring to summer that I get these allergies. So you can be aware of the specific time frame. And that's just for you. Or once again, someone that may have access to your account so that they're aware of when you get those seasonal allergies. Also listed here is anxiety. Maybe there's a little bit more to that. Maybe there's medical anxiety, fear of being scammed, things like that. You can always add extra details if you want. Let's move forward. So now this is surgical history. If you've been to medical facilities that support MyChart, these should be showing up for you. So this is going to be a list of surgical procedures that have happened to you. As we can see on this list, this patient had a prostate surgery back in 2006. So it does keep all of these records for you. It goes all the way back. Like I mentioned before, one patient we were able to view up to like 10 years ago on appointments, and it's even going further here regarding that surgical history. If anything, you can always add additional details on the bottom, once again, only for yourself, and then you could take it from there. You can always double check this. This is why I think this is important too, because if you're comparing the information that you have here compared to other medical facility that may not support MyChart, you want to make sure all this information is being shared. There should be a place for each page here where you can print these lists so that you can provide it to the care team at that other medical facility or something similar to that. This section right here is just social history. This is just like, oh, are you a smoker? Do you drink alcohol? Those questions are listed here, and then you can always add a personal note regarding that. So if it's like, oh, I drink maybe once or twice a week, you can add that detail if you would like. Another important section here, family medical history. So for this patient, this person has a decent amount of listings here regarding family medical history. Great place to make sure that you have all your information listed here. This patient's father has had hypertension. He suffers from depression. The maternal grandmother has diabetes. The paternal grandmother passed away from pancreatic cancer. cancer, things like that. It all helps to get a sense of that family history, especially once again, if you're going to another facility that may not know all the history for you. And I know for myself, sometimes I forget. And I always have to resort to looking back at these lists just to make sure that I listed everything for this new specialist, just to be on the safe side. There will always be a printable section here where you can print it out and things like that. I really do appreciate you having me and me to spread the word about telehealth and the importance of it, especially when it's cold outside. You don't want to even go outside and you realize, oh, wait, I can just do it from home. I really hope you learned something here today.